Hello, everyone. My name is Shinhwa Hong of the Center for Intangible Culture Studies located here in Jeonju, Korea. On behalf of the Secretariat for the Jeonju International Awards for Promoting Intangible Cultural Heritage, otherwise known as JIAPICH or Jeonju ICH Awards, we welcome all of you to the 2023 JIAPICH Online Colloquium titled The Public Accessibility of ICH. Although the Jeonju ICH Award is at a 5th annual edition, the online colloquium is the second ever meeting of its kind following the inaugural online seminar that started in 2021 during the pandemic years. The Jeonju City, along with the Secretariat, decided to hold the biannual online colloquium after the much success of the first edition of the online forum, as it served as a platform to trace the footsteps of our past awardees and applicants for the international ICH community alike. The notion of ICH is in all of our cultures. It correlates with our history, how we are perceived by other cultures, as it is part of our identity. Our ancestors were able to come together in unison through many of the ICHs, and now it is our turn to pass it on to our next generation. Today we are gathered here through the online realm, many experts, practitioners, as well as protectors of our humankind's ICH around the world present here. The broad theme for today's meeting is the public accessibility of ICH and how it relates to safeguarding in each of our ICH domain. Before starting our presentations from our wonderful Jeonju ICH Awards applicants, I would like to introduce Eun-sung Kim, Director of Traditional Cultural Heritage Division of Jeonju City Hall, who will be giving a welcome address to all of you here today. The floor is yours.
안녕하세요. 전주시 문화유산과장 김은성입니다. 먼저 오늘 2023 전주 세계무형유산대상 콜로키움에 귀한 시간 내어서 참석해 주신 발표자 및 전문가분들, 또 무형문화연구원 관계자분들께 진심으로 감사드립니다. 특히 작년 수상자이신 앙카 라이크와 이프가오 박물관에서 시상 이후의 활동 사례를 공유해 주신다고 하니 더욱 반갑고 뜻깊은 자리인 것 같습니다. 대한민국의 한 도시인 전주에서 세계 무형유산의 가치를 공유하고 지켜나가기 위해 세계 무형유산 대상을 만들고 시상하는 작은 일들을 하고 있지만, 이러한 노력들이 모여 각 나라마다 고유한 무형유산들이 다음 세대로 이어지며 우리의 삶을 더욱 풍요롭게 하기를 희망합니다. 다시 한번 매년 전주 세계 무형유산 대상에 깊은 관심을 가지고 심사도 해주시고 함께 관심을 가져주시는 전문가분들께 깊은 감사드리며, 이번 콜로키움을 준비해 주신 무형문화연구원에도 진심으로 감사드립니다. 앞으로도 많은 관심 부탁드리며 의미 있는 시간이 되셨으면 합니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Director Kim, for your heartfelt welcoming address. Without Jeonju City's ICH Protection Initiative and the commitment to safeguarding the heritages of the world, we will not have this meaningful award ceremony. We are always grateful for the Traditional Cultural Heritage Division of Jeonju. Along with Director Eun-sung Kim, we have Team Leader Kumi Park and Officer Suri Kim of the Jeonju City Traditional Cultural Heritage Division, who is always helping with the coordination of the Jeonju ICH Awards. We thank you for all the hard work behind the scenes. The 2023 JIAPICH Award ceremony will be held here in Jeonju City, as this is the only international awards for ICH in the world of its kind. We are always hopeful that you are keen to our activities. Okay. First, we have some scheduling regarding our program today that I would like to go over quickly. First, we have presentations from our previous finalists regarding our program today that I would like to go over quickly. First, we have presentations from our previous finalists, our awardees. We are keen to hear from our finalists who will be sharing their activities following the awards, along with the public accessibility of the ICH of their domain. The second part of the presentation we have from applicants who are presently active in safeguarding ICH of their respective regions. The presentation time is 15 minutes each. Because of time constraints, please keep in mind of the given 15 minutes. And after the conclusion of our 4 presentations, we will have a 10-minute break to prepare for our expert discourse section prepared by our ICH experts. Following the 10-minute intermission, we will have a 50-minute expert discussion starting at 11:20 p.m. for the Jeonju ICH Awards Future Coordination and Direction. The Jeonju ICH Awards places great importance on the preservation, transmission, and vitality of ICH. In this part, it would be good for those who are planning to apply for the Jeonju ICH Awards next year to share the direction of the awards and take away details that can be helpful for future application processes. Starting from 10 past midnight, Director Hani Ham of the Center for Intangible Culture Studies will summarize today's colloquium, and we will end our online forum with her summarization. Today we have attendees from the Asia Pacific, North and South America, Europe, Africa, as well as the Arab states. In some places, it is very early in the morning and late evening for some. We urge all of our presenters to be aware of the given time limit per presentation, as it is important that all of us are able to speak or ask questions during the online forum. Now, for our first presenter, she is one of the finalists from the 2023 Jeonju ICH Awards. Ms. Anka Raic of Bosnia Herzegovina is here to give her presentation. It's titled Sharing Experiences in ICH Safeguarding Activities. The floor is yours, Ms. Raic.
Greetings to all of you. My name is Anka Raic. I'm coming from Bosnia and Herzegovina, as you already know, and I'm a winner of the Biannual Award 2022 for promotion of traditional heritage. And it helped to my association to work much better and more. They are very grateful for it. And now I would like to share my experience in working with association with all of you. My role in is in organizing the system of association that work programs that contribute to the safeguarding and promotion of ICH. The first and the most important association, of which I'm co-founder and long-term manager, is UHACDU BiH, accredited to the UNESCO ICH Committee since 2014. Members and co-founders of this umbrella association are individuals and local associations that deal with the traditional cultural heritage in any way. We have organized the work of this association into sections for different types of activities. Each section have the obligation to organize at latest one event per year for all members, through which they will present their activities, exchange opinions with experts and colleagues from the other cities at the round table. The first of section I will show is folklore section. It contains folklore festivals with ceremonial parade of folklore groups in the streets of the city, with short stops in the squares and the dance and song to animate the audience. Second, content is the performance of local customs at the stage with dance and songs. It is obligation of each group to perform another custom from their local place in at latest 2 years. That means they have to research about their traditional heritage and to show another custom any second year. Fairs and traditional handicrafts, food and traditional medical preparation, costumes and traditional musical instruments. A round table where group leaders meet with colleagues, scientists, experts, and local administration and exchange opinions looking for the way to improve the work on the safeguarding of intangible cultural heritage. All events are monitored by the professional college, scientists hired by UHAKUDU BiH, who keeps records and give their opinion in written form, which are archived in UHAKUDU BiH. UHAKUDU BiH ensure good media coverage for all events. UHAKUDU BiH select the best groups and programs for international exchange, which is an incentive for groups to work better. The second program is Folklore Seminar. Folklore Seminar UHAKUDU BiH organized every year in the form of weekly summer camp. The participants of the seminar are young people from Bosnia and Herzegovina and descendants of immigrants from the around who want to learn about the traditional culture of their parents. The lecturers and the seminar are university professors who teach young people about the historical context of the form of ICH being studied. The presenters are bearers of individual elements of ICH who convey the practical performance to the young people. UHAKUDU BiH publishes a collection of works by lecturers from the seminars. All activities are well promoted through the media and social networks. Third is section of traditional fine arts. This section organized a biennial exhibition of traditional fine arts for about 70 members, sets up the 3 different cities and publishes the catalog of the exhibition. In addition to the painters and sculptures, some traditional artist craft, such as wood carving, embroidery, or ceramics, are also participate in the exhibitions. We also organize regional and colonies that contribute to the transfer of skills and additional promotion. The next is international cooperation. In order to exchange experience and programs, UHAKUDU BiH cooperates with the various international associations of a similar type. We underline the cooperation with CIOFF, International Council of Organization of Folk Festivals and Folk Art, which operates on a global level and in an official associated partnership with the UNESCO Commission for ICH. CIOFF has a strong global network of folklore festivals, organized over 300 international folklore festivals annually, with exhibitions, workshops, seminars, concerts, and conferences with the Cultural Forum by sectors and the World Congress and also World Folkloriada for every 4 years, and similar activities. CIOFF also assures several publications, organize presentation through the media and social networks, which contributes to the visibility and accessibility of associations, programs, and ICH elements. As the president of the Umbrella Association, I have been representative of association from Bosnia and Herzegovina to CIOFF for 20 years. Cooperating with CIOFF, I learned a lot, and I transferred all my experience and knowledge to the network of association in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The next is Society for Digitization of Traditional Cultural Heritage. I'm also co-founder and member of the board of directors of this association, which works on the recording and promoting of ICH using modern IT technologies. The association acts as a support to UHAKUTU Bosnia and Herzegovina and CIOFF Bosnia and Herzegovina section in mapping, improving, and the availability and visibility of ICH elements and their holders. They organize seminars to raise awareness of local communities, thematic, scientific, and professional conferences, collecting, promoting, and digitizing ICH elements, and building electronic portal through which these data are available to public. That is just a brief information about my activities and activities of association in Bosnia and Herzegovina on safeguarding and promoting of ICH. I suppose that the key role of this is cooperation between holders of ICH, which are base of our association, associations, scientists, and holders of local governmental bodies. That is the main thing we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Raic, for your wonderful presentation on ICH safeguarding of CIOFF of Bosnia-Herzegovina. Ms. Raic has been working hard to endure that the pulse of ICH is not cut off and deactivated even during the times of the pandemic. I believe many of us here are inspired by Ms. Raic's dedication to the vitality of her region's ICH. Thank you for that, Ms. Raic.
Yes. We had one project supported by the UNESCO ICH entity because we started a project of digitization of traditional cultural heritage before the pandemic, and we used the time of pandemic to select the data and to put it on the web page and so on, and to promote our project on local and international level using this media platform and so on. It was useful, and we made some conclusions about some difficulties in Bosnia and Herzegovina, not only pandemic, which endanger the cultural heritage, like losing people. Many people are going from Bosnia and Herzegovina to Europe to work for better life and so on, and emigration, young people from smaller local communities to bigger in Bosnia and Herzegovina, also because of studying and because of job. So local communities are losing young people in age of 17 or 18 years and so on. So they cannot cherishing their local traditional heritage. But bigger cities win people infected by folklore virus and with good knowledge of local heritage, and we use it across this umbrella association and programs to share the traditional culture and to work on its preservation. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Raic. Next, we have a presentation prepared by the Cordillera National Museum of the Philippines. They are the finalists for the 2022 Jeonju ICH Awards. The presentation is titled "The Museum as a Medium for a Barrier-Free Access to ICH." Attending from the Cordillera National Museum is Ms. Eulalie Dulnuan. Unfortunately, Ms. Leticia Layagan could not make it here today. And instead of a oral presentation, we'll be playing a audiovisual video from the Ifugao Museum prepared for today's online forum.
Good evening to us all. We are glad to be participating in this international colloquium. I am Eulalie Dulnuan, and together with my colleague, Ms. Leticia Layagan, we shall be sharing our experiences as cultural workers in using the museum as a medium for a barrier-free access to intangible cultural heritage. I shall give the introductory part, and Ms. Leti shall give the museum-specific experiences. The UNESCO Convention for the Safeguarding of International Cultural Heritage highlights the roles of communities and groups in safeguarding ICH. It places focus on living heritage that is performed by people collectively and communicated through living experience. As a living cultural heritage, Ifugao Province here in the Philippines has more than its fair share of intangible cultural heritage. Ifugao is a World Heritage Site as designated by UNESCO and a globally important agricultural heritage system site as designated by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Safeguarding intangible cultural heritage is about the transfer of knowledge, skills, and meaning. In the indigenous cultural communities of Ifugao Province, the traditional transmission of knowledge and practices are done through orally, and through observation. This explains why, in the current educational system, there are limited learning modules for teachers and mentors to use when the topic is on indigenous knowledge systems and practices. Another reason might be that the Department of Education has a centralized curriculum for use across the entire country. However, government policies are now paving the way for curriculum to be indigenized and contextualized, and this is a very big step in recognizing the rights of indigenous peoples. So we now have the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act, which was enacted in 1997, and it recognizes and promotes the rights of indigenous peoples and indigenous cultural communities. So indigenous communities have a fundamental right to preserve their traditional cultural legacy, whether this is tangible or intangible. So this mandates the government to recognize, protect, promote, and fulfill the rights of indigenous peoples. The Cordillera region, which the Ifugao province belongs to, is an indigenous cultural community with many indigenous groups in this upland area. The province of Ifugao alone has more than 5 ethnic groups distributed in the many municipalities, with each group having rich cultural and natural heritage. This timeline shows that indigenous education remains at an emergent stage. The heightened sense of urgency to advance the education of indigenous peoples have been driven by the commitment of the Philippines to education for all and the Millennium Development Goals and now the Sustainable Development Goals, which demand universal and free access to primary schooling. The Philippines is one of the first nations in Asia to pass a law recognizing the rights and development needs of indigenous peoples. Even almost 2 decades after IPRA's enactment, there remains much to be desired concerning the overall conditions of indigenous peoples in the Philippines, especially with regards to safeguarding of the intangible cultural heritage. By making intangible cultural heritage accessible, cultural communities, or rather cultural agencies such as museums, can contribute to the preservation of marginalized and endangered cultural practices, empowering indigenous cultural communities to safeguard and transmit their heritage to future generations. It enables cultural communities who have been bound to the mainstream to relearn and to reclaim their cultural heritage. Barriers to access to intangible cultural heritage. Intangible cultural heritage is not accessible to everyone even during these enlightened times. But there are several barriers that exist. We can name 4. Number 1 is limited resources. A barrier to access to intangible cultural heritage is financial constraints. There are many intangible cultural heritage practices and events that require materials, equipment, and facilities. For instance, traditional music and dance require instruments or stages that can be very costly. Another barrier is physical disability. Facilities such as museums and other cultural agencies can also present challenges to accessing cultural heritage. Traditional museum practices may prevent visitors from engaging with exhibits, especially if these are within glass showcases. The use of technical language and jargon may also prevent museum visitors from understanding their culture. Moreover, physical and sensory barriers such as stairs and lack of audio description may prevent individuals with diverse abilities from accessing museum collections, especially for visitors with low vision, those with hearing impairments, and with mobility impairments. Number 3 could be that visits to cultural agencies are not part of the curriculum. Visiting cultural agencies are not the norm, especially in the Cordillera region. This might be due to the remoteness of most primary schools from town centers, high cost of travel, there's the entrance fees, transportation, and food, and there's also lack of awareness of which cultural agencies are available in the area. And then finally, there's lack of awareness. One significant barrier could be the lack of awareness of intangible cultural heritage. Many people do not realize or understand the importance and relevance of intangible cultural heritage. The tendency to focus on tangible heritage may lead to the neglect and apathy towards preserving and promoting intangible cultural heritage. I now turn over the mic and the floor to Ms. Leticia, who shall tell you about how the National Museum of the Philippines responds to these barriers. Thank you.
Good evening to one and all. I am Ms. Leticia from the National Museum of the Philippines, Cordillera. My part this evening is to give to you the responses of the National Museum of the Philippines to the given barriers to the accessibility of intangible cultural heritage in the Philippines. As one of the custodians of cultural heritage, the National Museum of the Philippines has 3 major goals: as educational center, scientific organization, and a cultural center. At the National Museum Cordillera, It has been busy as an educational center through various activities, such as lecture demonstrations on rice wine brewing and yeast making, basic textile and basket weaving, and traditional embroidery. Interactive workshops on how cotton is made into threads for all interested museum visitors. Another is the return demonstrations on how Ifugao houses are constructed using replicas, lectures on what is heritage, heritage sites, and local history. Of educational tours for primary and secondary school learners, and also production of video documentaries of crafts that serve as learning materials. As a scientific organization, we have the following research-related activities. We have the showing of documentaries on Ifugao history, which is a direct output of the Ifugao Archaeological Project.
The old Kiyaman village. Rice is central to Ifugao culture. Rituals and feasts are carried out to thank the gods for bountiful harvests, and the villagers were preparing to celebrate a successful one.
Launching a book entitled Decolonizing Ifugao History by Stephen B. Acabado and Marlon M. which details some of the findings from the Ifugao Archaeological Project, a collaborative project conducted with the National Museum of the Philippines. Documenting the process of making gongs through a research project entitled Udindigangha, or Traditional Gong Smithery in Ifugao. This was conducted in 2022 by the Museum Information Officer, no other than Ms. Leticia. This is an important documentation of a craft that is slowly losing its artisans. As a cultural center, the National Museum Cordillera has the following attributes. Sitting on a historic locale where the sub-capital building of Ifugao Mountain Province used to stand in the early 1900s. The stone Hagabi bench is the only remaining remnant of the building. It is situated at the compound of the Kiangan Shrine, a military shrine of the Philippine Veterans Affairs Office, a memorial to the soldiers and guerrillas who fought for peace during the World War II. The next steps on intangible cultural heritage, which is based on the 3-year plan we prepared, is that first, the National Museum Cordillera planned to put up a marker, a physical monument bannering to the public the significant role of this museum. Secondly, the establishment of a mini souvenir shop in support of the marginalized entrepreneurs. Thirdly, a number of capability building activities to include the conduct of lecture demonstrations on stonewalling, a technique traditionally mastered by the rice terracing communities. And further, a thorough video documentation on oral literature. The National Museum Cordillera will continue to collaborate with the International Cultural Heritage Community Circle for the needed guidance and support, if only to realize both National Museum of the Philippines and JIAPICH goals. Thank you for your kind attention. Once again, this is Leticia Lagayan from National Museum Cordillera in the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lagayan and Ms. Dulnuan, for preparing the wonderful presentation from the NM Cordillera Regional Museum of the Philippines. The museum is an ethnic museum for the Ifugao peoples of the Philippines. It is located in the same area as the UNESCO-listed Cordillera Rice Terraces. We know that the Ifugao Museum does a lot to educate the next generation of the Philippines and hold many workshops for the public. Wonderful to see you here today, Ms. Dulnuan. Please send my regards to Ms. Lagayan. Next, we will move along to the second part of the presentations. Although the two presenters here are not finalists for the Jeonju ICH Awards, they have applied to our awards and their ICH activities are considered vital to the region of their working domain.
Thank you. I just wanted to start just with an introduction. I am an individual working in helping promote the tradition of Hanji, which is Korean paper, outside of Korea. So there's a lot of work being done in Korea, but my interest is as an American of Korean descent. So I was born and raised in New York along the Hudson River, which I think affected my choice to become a paper maker and artist, which I started in graduate school in 2003. And in my studies, I learned about how the history of paper making started in China, went to Korea and went to Japan, and then went westward. But the history of Korean paper making felt very limited in at least the English language. And so I went to Korea to try to study it. And this was my master's thesis. And I had created this structure out of paper. And once it was erected, my family asked if I had a connection to this Korean national treasure, which is a 16th century observatory called Cheomsongdae. And once I started to see these connections even more directly, I felt it was very important to go to Korea to learn. And so on a Fulbright grant, I was able to study with a 4th generation paper making family, and their business is called Changjibang, and it's in Gapyeong, Korea, which is northern part of South Korea, not far from the border. And I was able to learn all the steps of making traditional Hanji, from cutting down the trees to drying and finishing the sheets. And when I came back to the US, I really wanted to share all of this with my community. So I wrote a book, which was the first one of its kind in the English language that specifically focused on Hanji. And it's called Hanji Unfurled, One Journey into Korean Paper Making. So that I also write a lot and publish and then create videos and things to put online. So that's one prong of the work I do. The other is as an artist, and I exhibit widely and I make artwork out of Hanji. But this particular show was at papermaking museum in Georgia Tech in Atlanta. And you can see on the left side, there's a screen that was acquired by the late Dart Hunter in 1933 from Korea. There are on the pedestal, kind of on the right side in the front, you can see objects that are for touch. You can see some of my objects that are on display for artwork, but then also informational panels on the very right of all the steps of making Hanji, a video in the back that ran my research videos and other kinds of books and texts. Then there's a more traditional kind of exhibit where it's all the artwork, so that people can see the different ways that you can use Hanji in a contemporary context, so that I'm especially trying to make Hanji more viable for artists today. And then this is another one that I did for the Korean consulate. So I do a lot of work in conjunction with Korean consulates and embassies. And then this one was in the United Arab Emirates in Sharjah during their Heritage Days, when they have tens of thousands of people come through, and they had invited me to have a solo exhibit to focus on Hanji and share this culture in a festival that shares cultures from around the world. And then this is another one from a show where I asked American artists, I curated it to include American artists influenced by Korean art and culture, and they included 2 or 3 Caucasians working in ceramics, but this is an image of myself with the 2 past students that I've had, Steph Rue and Sammy Lee, who work now in Hanji. And later Steph got a Fulbright to study Hanji, and Sammy right now will be going to Korea. She's probably almost there right now to start her Fulbright. And then another prong has been to create a studio. So it's to be able to, for me to keep practicing making Hanji, but away from Korea in America, I had to create a studio since that didn't exist. So I cooperated with a nonprofit, the Morgan Conservatory in Cleveland, and created this first Korean papermaking studio in the Western Hemisphere. It's definitely the first in North America, where I was able to teach, and they had planted the plants for the papermaking that is appropriate for both Korean and Japanese style papermaking, the paper mulberry tree. Every year they harvest and then steam the shoots and then strip the bark. This is an activity that's open to the community. All the Americans come and they help with this, which was usually done in rural communities, but this is now in an urban community. So scraping the bark that has been stripped, creating the tools based on my research in Korea. So these are the scraping platforms, scraping knives that I commissioned an American blacksmith to make. And then you have to dry the bark and make cooking lye from wood ashes, cook the bark, pick the bark. These are 2 of my first apprentices that I trained for half a year to learn how to make Hanji, beat the bark by hand. And then I also commissioned David Reyna, who is a machine builder who usually makes traditional European American style beaters, but I asked him if he would be willing to work on this to make an Asian style beater. And so this is the first stainless steel machine of its kind in the country. And now that he's made them, he's been able to make more for other locations, so we can spread the tools that we need to be able to make this type of paper, but outside of the home countries. We had to build a large vat, and we had interns and volunteers and employees and staff members help. It was a very big team. We did this in about 5 weeks in the summer of 2010, building frames for the screens, making test screens. This is the one part we weren't able to do in America, but we tried to do them out of stainless steel. Traditionally, they're made out of bamboo. I returned actually to Korea 2 years ago to study this part, because it's America is not a bamboo culture. This is a very difficult thing to do in the States. So we had interns who were able to make traditional Korean style paper, and the style is called webaldugi, and students of all ages and all coming from all over the country. I was able to train apprentices. This is the part where we press the water out of the paper and then put it on boards to dry. This was a heat lamp dry box that was donated by Timothy Barrett, who wanted to support the studio. And in this way, we can dry the papers faster without using steam that's traditionally done in Korea. And sometimes we just work on drying them outside. We also plant the seeds for the plants. So this is hibiscus plant, and you grow this and for the roots, because it's very integral to making the paper. So it's a technical thing I won't get into, but there are many different plants involved, not just the paper mulberry tree that makes the paper. I also got dye plants for the garden so that we could dye papers. And then another prong of my work has been teaching in post-secondary education. So at Oberlin College in Ohio, every year for a month, I teach Korean paper making in a global context. And so the students, again, go through the process of scraping the bark, picking the bark, beating the bark, making the paper, pressing the paper, boarding the paper, learning how to use natural dyes and colors, and then making books. And then another prong of my work has been working with children. This is in an elementary school. This is at a camp at the time for Korean adoptees, and it's now expanded for Asian adoptees, so that these children can have some connection with their birth culture. I teach people informally in the neighborhood. So this is a girl whose mother is Korean, his father is white American, and her mother wanted her to have some connection to Korean culture. So I would have her come to my home and I would teach her how to do jisung, which is a type of Korean paper weaving, like a basketry. And then another prong of my work has been lectures. So this is near DC. This is in Denver at their art museum, at the University of Chicago, and then teaching workshops around the world. So this is a workshop in Tasmania, Australia, in Chile, in Santiago for a Korean Studies conference, in Toronto at Paper House, which is a papermaking studio, in Vienna in Austria. And this was 9 straight days of teaching, because we had to replicate the classes, because there was so much demand for people to come from all parts of Europe to take these classes. This is in Western Australia, at Fibers West, a fiber conference, and then domestic workshops, domestics as in the United States, so New York, California, Boston, Oregon, Minnesota, Rhode Island, Michigan. And this is a special course we did in Michigan, where usually I teach a modified style of paper making, but for this I was teaching the Korean style, which requires special vat and equipment, but I was able to build a portable one that I travel with. So as long as I can fit it into my car, I can drive there. They can do very traditional style Korean paper making. This is in New Jersey. This is in North Carolina at Penland, a very famous craft school. The Cleveland Museum of Art. And you can see we just work wherever we can, whether it's outside or inside. This is back in Michigan with that custom vat. This is another location in Michigan that also wanted to present this workshop. Texas, back to Boston, back to Chicago. And this was a larger event sponsored by the Korean Consulate in Chicago. And then in California, the Middlebury College Korean Language School operates actually in California. And this is a course that I taught in Korean to Americans that want to learn Korean language. Wells College in upstate New York, which you can see built a custom vat that they now own. And again, we modify spaces as best we can. So whether that's drying onto blackboards or doors or windows. Women's Studio Workshop is also in upstate New York, San Francisco, and this is 2 Korean diaspora students. Dieudonné in New York, which is a premier papermaking studio, and they also built their own vat. I forgot to say Women's Studio Workshop also built a vat for us. So these are places where we're expanding Hanji capabilities, so now that these paper studios can do both American style and also Korean style. So you can see this is still in New York at Dieudonné, and that leads into the last prong where I'm working a lot with Korean diaspora students. And these are students who may not have the opportunity to go to Korea for financial reasons, for language reasons, because they're American citizens or they're mixed race and they didn't have exposure to their Korean culture, or they just don't have the resources because unfortunately in Korea, they don't have a program to teach Hanji formally. So the best place for people who don't know Korean to learn Hanji making is to come to me. So this is the small vat, so you can see the drawings, which I share for free with all of my students. So Stefru, who was one of my students, then took those drawings, made her own vat so that she can teach also in California where she lives. And then this is my vat back in I have now a private studio in Ohio where I can teach very customized workshops. And this one was for students who were all from the Korean diaspora. And they are now all like, this is one of those students, Bobby Cho Henderson, who then made his own vat. And you can see in the right side, he also made his own frame. I helped him get a screen from the last remaining screen maker in Jeonju. And so he was able to make hundreds and hundreds of sheets of Hanji. And this is some of his installation work that he did on a residency that I helped him get in Arkansas, which is a southern state, which normally would see no kind of Korean paper in this capacity. And so this is another student from LA working on Chisung, which is that basketry process. So this is a Korean adoptee from France who wanted to learn how to make paper. She came here and will be going to Korea next month for her first visit back to Korea. So this is just a summary of the efforts, the multi-pronged efforts I've been having to spread Hanji awareness since 2009, and that is to learn Hanji traditions directly from holders of the tradition, write and publish about Hanji in print and online, make and exhibit Hanji art, build Hanji studios, teach post-secondary students, children, lecture widely, teach workshops internationally and domestically, and teach and mentor the Korean diaspora. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee, for your wonderful presentation. It can be noted that Hanji making activities involve a rigorous technical process, and that your workshops and activities reach to educate other artists and convey the values of ICH to many Korean people, as well as second-generation Asians living in the United States. Thank you, Ms. Lee. Next, we have our last presentation from the Cultural Research Foundation, known as CIOFF, from Turkey. Our guest speaker, Ms. NİHAL ÇEVİK, is here to present on safeguarding and transmission activities related to ICH of DCRF. The floor is yours, Ms. ÇEVİK.
Thank you, dear Shimaho. I'm happy to share with you our foundation's activities, some examples of activities on ACH. Can I share screen? Yes, the Cultural Research Foundation is a non-governmental organization established in 2002 with the primary objective of conducting research and documentation on traditional culture and raising awareness in this field. CIOFF has been accredited as an NGO under the UNESCO ACH Convention since 2012. CIOFF has actively participated as a member of the Intangible Cultural Heritage Commission of Izmir and is also a member of the ICH NGO Forum. CIOFF's activities related to intangible cultural heritage, led by folklorists, anthropologists, and masters of handicrafts, can be categorized as conducting research and documentation on ACH, sharing and promoting ACH through various publications and events, raising awareness of intangible cultural heritage, particularly among children and young people. CIOFF's core expertise lies in conducting field research, documentation and inventory studies on ACH. These activities involve collaborations with public institutions, municipalities, academic institutions, NGOs, ACH bearers, experts, local communities, and researchers. CIOFF carries out its work through the following initiatives: developing research, inventory, and safeguarding measures, publishing books, websites, documentary films, and other forms of media, organizing educational activities and events to enhance awareness, hosting exhibitions such as traditional toys, crafts, photos. ACH study program categories that traditional culinary culture, toy and play culture, handcraft traditions, rituals. Under the culinary culture research program, documentation activities encompass various perspectives, including traditional culinary practices, kitchen architecture, food preparation techniques, cooking and presentation utensils, and beliefs and oral traditions related to food. The toy research program explores traditional toy production methods, organizing exhibitions, educational activities and workshops to transmit traditional knowledge to younger generations. The handicrafts program investigates the intergenerational transmission of handicrafts, including production techniques based on oral traditions, methods, and rituals for transferring usage knowledge, skills, and etiquette, as well as traditional design and remodeling practices. The ritual program encompasses rituals associated with life transitions, such as birth and marriage and death, as well as seasonal ceremonies, collective collaborations, celebrations, and competitions. Examples of inventory studies: to utilize new technologies for documenting, sharing, safeguarding, and transmitting intangible cultural heritage, the Folk Portal website. The platform serves as a digital inventory for ACH elements, providing a space for individuals, groups, and communities, especially young people, to identify and sustain their ACH. Guided by a team of approximately 60 expert academics, researchers, and artists, Folk Portal offers questionnaires prepared by experts, serving as valuable resources for inventorying purposes. The other inventory study in 2019, an inventory study focusing on bearers of intangible cultural heritage in traditional crafts was initiated in Izmir. This study, supported by Izmir Municipality and Izmir Development Agency, registered 108 masters of handcrafts. The finding of this study, completed 2020, were reported to relevant institutions to support Izmir's tourism destination planning. In response to the adverse impact of COVID-19 pandemic on artisans, a digital publication, My Art Story, was released in Turkish and English in 2020, featuring artisans sharing their personal narratives. This publication released under the theme of My Art Story, aimed to raise awareness among artisans about their intangible heritage and underscore the role of ACH safeguarding measures in sustaining craft traditions. By bringing together 40 artisans from various craft fields on a single platform, this initiative provided an opportunity to highlight the social significance of ACH, particularly during pandemic conditions. As part of the toy culture program conducted by CIOFF since 2002, in different provinces of Turkey, An inventory study titled Culture of Anatolian Toys has been completed. The publication maybe of this is scheduled for this September. Examples, ACH education activities. In 2018, the ACH and photography event was organized to provide education on ACH and photographic documentation to students from Cappadocia University and other interested young individuals. The activities contributed to relevant academic institutions and local NGOs. During the same year, the collaborative exhibition titled Dreams, Games and Reading Exhibitions was held at the Modern Museum. This exhibition, organized in partnership with the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, Ankara University Toy Museum, showcased CIOFF's toy collection as educational and promotional elements. Furthermore, a documentation project focusing on the toy collection at Ankara University Toy Museum was carried out in collaboration with CIOFF. The university published an e-book presenting the findings of this project. The educational materials included in the e-book targeted teachers and researchers interested in children and toy culture, effectively reaching a broad audience. In 2020, in an animation project supported by the European Union Civil Society Program was initiated to explain the Convention for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage to preschool children through an appropriate technique. The animation featured anime characters explaining the 5 domains of ACH. This project was shared with relevant educational institutions and reached approximately 500 preschool children, promoting awareness and understanding of ACH from an early age. The activities examples promote ACH safeguarding. In 2019, CIOFF launched the Ethnophotography website in collaboration with Ankara University Department of Folklore. This platform aims to promote artistic works and share visual records of elements included in local and national inventories to safeguarding ACH actively. And traditional wearers and researchers can access CIOFF's digital and physical archives to obtain information about the ACH Convention and safeguarding measures. This resource enables them to make informed decisions and take necessary steps to safeguard their intangible cultural heritage. CIOFF actively encourages traditional bearers and associations or platforms they are associated with to participate in convention implementation and protection efforts, ensuring ACH sustainability for future generations. Some examples, international collaboration activities. During the 21st Beijing International Book Fair in August 2014, CIOFF presented the Anatolian Folk Toys exhibition from its collection, contributing to intercultural exchange and fostering knowledge sharing on cultural interactions. As an example of international cooperation, we presented examples from Turkiye in ICHKEP's 2017 Traditional Medicine and 2019 the Traditional Food Temp Living Heritage books. It was a useful experience for us to be involved in both publications that emphasize cultural diversity through experiences from the field. Finally, we perceive intangible cultural heritage as a fundamental cultural right and a domain based on rights. The evaluation of ACH Convention since its introduction in 2003 has highlighted the international significance of our works. I strongly believe in the continued development of the Convention through dialogue and collaboration between state institutions and civil society. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all my colleagues at NGO Forum for their invaluable contributions in this regard. The opportunity to share our experiences in this forum holds great significance for us. Therefore, on behalf of our foundation, I am deeply honored to be present here and extend my heartfelt gratitude to all my colleagues and the esteemed members of the JIAPICH community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. ÇEVİK, for your presentation. CRF of Turkiye is an organization that is doing a lot of activities in terms of ICH safeguarding, such as traditional cooking, play, research, and inventorying. It was really impressive that the research and reporting went hand in hand with programs aimed at the general public. CRF is indeed playing a vital role for the ICH of Turkiye. Thank you, Ms. ÇEVİK.
Thank you.
We now heard from all of our presenters today. We appreciate all of your hard work in the ICH field of your regions, and thank you for preparing today's wonderful presentations. If there are any questions or comments for our presenters, please leave it in the chat box. And if our presenters can graciously answer them during the break time or during expert discourse section, it would be greatly appreciated. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll be back in 10 minutes.